Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today, we are digging into a question that, let's be honest, has probably driven you crazy at some point.
You know the feeling, you've been there, right? You're in a conversation, maybe an argument, and you've got all your facts lined up, you have the charts, you have the data, but nothing. It feels like you're just talking to a brick wall. Well, it turns out that's not just about someone being stubborn. It's about a deep, fundamental feature of how every single one of our brains is wired.
So, to really get to the bottom of this, here's how we're going to break it down. We're going to start by busting a huge myth about how we think. Then, you're going to meet your inner lawyer, the real force at work, and we'll look at its tactics. We'll even dive into the neuroscience, the brain scans that show what's happening. We'll ask if this is a bug or a feature of our evolution. And finally, we'll look at what, if anything, we can actually do about it.
We all like to imagine our mind is this objective, impartial judge. We picture ourselves wearing the black robe, carefully sifting through all the evidence, weighing both sides fairly, and then bang, reaching a logical conclusion based purely on the facts. It's a really nice image of ourselves, but it's mostly a fantasy. See, cognitive science paints a totally different picture. Our brain, more often than not, acts less like that impartial judge and a whole lot more like a determined defense attorney. It doesn't start by asking, what's the truth here? No, it starts with a client, which is our pre-existing belief, and immediately asks, okay, how do I build the most rock-solid case to defend this position? The goal shifts from finding the truth to winning the case.
All right, so let's properly meet this inner lawyer. It's not just a cute metaphor. It's a real psychological phenomenon that's running in the background, shaping how we see the world every single day. And of course, it has a name.
It's called motivated reasoning, and the key word here is unconscious. This isn't about being dishonest or purposefully trying to mislead anyone. It's this subtle, automatic process where our goals, our desires, our identities, they steer our thinking. We don't just see reality, we bend it, just a little, to fit what we want to be true.
A psychologist named Ziva Kunda absolutely nailed this back in 1990. She basically said our brains operate in two different modes. Sometimes we have accuracy goals. That's the judge genuinely trying to get the right answer. But way more often, especially when something we care about is on the line, we switch to directional goals, and that's the lawyer. We already have a destination in mind, and our brain just works backward to draw a map to get there.
So, if our brain's a lawyer, what's in its playbook? What are the specific legal strategies it uses to win the case for our beliefs, even when the evidence against them starts piling up?
Now here's the really crucial part. Our inner lawyer can't just make stuff up out of thin air. It's limited by what Kunda called the illusion of objectivity. We have to be able to build a case that seems reasonable, at least to ourselves. We have to feel like we're being logical, even as we're secretly stacking the deck.
There's this landmark study from 1979 that shows this perfectly. Researchers found two groups of people. One group was strongly in favor of the death penalty, the other was strongly against it. Then, they showed everybody the exact same mixed bag of evidence. One scientific study suggested it was a great deterrent, and another study suggested it had no effect at all. So, what do you think happened?
The result is just wild. Instead of the mixed evidence making people say, maybe it's more complicated, it drove them even further apart. Both sides looked at the exact same information, picked out the parts they liked, and came away more certain than ever that they were right from the start. They became even more polarized. And this happens because that inner lawyer has a killer 1-2 punch. The first move is biased assimilation. When evidence comes along that supports what we already think, we just nod and accept it. Yep, seems legit. But when evidence comes along that challenges our view, we activate the second move, disconfirmation bias. Suddenly, we become 5-star general skeptics. We whip out a magnifying glass and scrutinize every little detail, looking for any flaw we can find to dismiss it. For decades, this was all based on clever behavioral studies. But now, thanks to technology like fMRI, we can literally peer inside a person's skull while they're thinking and see the biological smoking gun. We can watch the inner lawyer at work. So neuroscientist Drew Westen conducted this incredible study during the really heated 2004 U.S. election. He put committed partisans, both Democrats and Republicans, into a brain scanner, and then he showed them statements where their own candidate was blatantly contradicting themselves, a direct attack on their political beliefs. Now, the first thing the researchers noticed was what didn't happen. The part of the brain that handles cool, detached, logical reasoning, it just stayed quiet. There was no extra activity. It was as if the judge wasn't even in the courtroom.
Instead, a completely different network in the brain lit up like a Christmas tree. We're talking about the emotional centers, the parts that process conflict and, get this, threat. The brain wasn't treating this contradictory information like a math problem to be solved. It was treating it like a physical threat, like a spider crawling up your leg. But here it is. This is the absolute bombshell. As soon as the person's brain found a way to explain away the contradiction, to rationalize it, a key part of their brain's reward circuit fired off. We are talking about the ventral striatum, the same area that gives us a jolt of pleasure from delicious food, from winning money, or from addictive drugs. Just think about that. Successfully defending our beliefs doesn't just feel right, it literally feels good. It gives us a little neurochemical hit.
Okay, so at this point, you're probably thinking, this is a terrible flaw in our wiring. It's a bug that needs to be fixed, right? But what if it's not a bug at all? What if, from an evolutionary perspective, it's actually a feature? It's a concept called identity protective cognition. You have to remember, for most of human history, our survival depended way less on being factually correct about abstract things and way more on just staying in good standing with our tribe. Our beliefs were like badges of belonging. Being right about the facts was way less important than being seen as one of us. So, rejecting a fact that could get you kicked out of the group, that was actually the smart, adaptive thing to do.
And this leads to a really uncomfortable paradox. Research shows that on hot-button issues, people with higher science literacy and better analytical skills are often more polarized, not less. And why is that? Well, if your brain is a lawyer, having a higher IQ just makes you a better lawyer. You're more skilled at finding flaws in the other side's case and building more sophisticated arguments for what your tribe already believes.
So if facts don't work and being smarter can actually make things worse, are we just doomed? Are we stuck in our own biased bubbles forever? Well, the research says not necessarily. There might be some ways to gently nudge our brains back toward that accuracy goal.
Two really promising ideas have emerged. The first is to cultivate science curiosity. Not just knowing facts, but feeling a genuine joy in the process of discovery. That pleasure can actually compete with the pleasure of being right. The second is to use what are called accuracy nudges. It can be as simple as asking someone to think about being accurate before they look at information. That simple prime can shift their brain out of lawyer mode and into judge mode, even if just for a little while.
You know, if there's one big idea to walk away with, it's this. Motivated reasoning isn't a sign that someone is stupid or a bad person. It's a sign that they're human. Our brains have this ancient software that was designed to help us belong, and it's just not always a perfect match for the complex, information-overloaded world we live in now.
Look, you can't fire your inner lawyer. It's a part of you. But just by knowing it exists, by understanding its playbook, you can start to recognize when it's hijacking the conversation. And that awareness, right there, is the first and most powerful step toward having better conversations, being a little more honest with ourselves, and maybe, just maybe, giving our inner judge a chance to get a word in.